Hi, PG girls, and welcome again to another episode of the PG podcast. It's so good to be in your AirPods, on your computers, wherever you're listening, or wherever you're watching. Thank you so much for being a part of this community, for being a part of what God is doing in the earth. There are more than 1,000 PG insiders. Can you believe it? I'm so excited about that and so excited about what God's going to take us to and take us through together. Today's podcast is going to be incredible. Let me tell you a little bit of what's going on. You ever had those days where you have to teach, or you have to show up, or you have to get up for your kids, or you have to work, and you just don't have the energy, and you're telling the Lord, look, I can't even take care of me today. How am I supposed to take care of anybody? Well, that's sort of where I was this morning, and having to record a podcast. And of course I could just say things, and of course I could just inspire you and say what I feel like, if it's going to be okay. But the podcast to me is never about just talking, but it's always about delivering a word right on time for somebody that will need it. Just today, I walked outside, and the girls who are working in the coffee shop said, Pastor Sharo, that word that we just got was exactly what I needed. That's from the last podcast. And I said, I recorded that 2 weeks ago, but God is aware of where you will be the minute you hear this podcast. Well, I was talking to my friend Celia on the way here, Missionary Celia from Mozambique. And while speaking to her, telling her a little bit about what I was going through in my own life, she said that, the Lord had given me something for the PG girls. And I was like, what? This is perfect. Because the thing about being a preacher girl is that you need to get what you have inside you out, but you also need to be filled up from time to time. We're there to encourage each other. So today, as Missionary Celia was sharing with me what God had laid on her heart, I knew that it's God's will for her to bring that word to you, because it's so timely. It's what I needed, and I'm sure it'll be what you need too. So I'm going to bring her on right now. Say hi, Sally.
Hey, PGs, preacher girls.
It's so good to have you here all the way from Mozambique. We're recording this at about 4:30 um, North American time in the Northeastern corridor. She is all the way in Mozambique. What time is it over there?
10:30 p.m.
Right. It is half an hour before Minister Sully's bedtime.
Yes.
But here she is. So Sally, I want you to just take a minute and introduce the topic that you're going to be speaking to us about. I know you just preached a series based on this, and the Lord really gave you some insight. So go ahead.
So a few weeks ago, the Lord laid this on my heart. This topic is voices. If you forget anything else, remember voices, because this is what we hear inside of us all the time. But we don't name what goes on inside of us. But the Lord, through my own life experience and some things I was going through, the Lord started ministering to me, and out of that I spoke a series of four sermons in my church here in Mozambique. And to this day, people are still being blessed and still commenting on it, and then they mention it, they quote it, because God is still speaking to them through that. So I really felt in my heart that this is a word that could also bless our PG community. And so I would not just go and offer it like that, but I thought, but this would really bless somebody. So I told my PG there, and she said she thought it would be a good thing to share with you.
Okay, so while we were talking a little bit about the voices, I know you PGs out there, you know that 90% of what you're hearing and the conversation that you're having is literally happening right here between your ears. And sometimes we hang on to what we hear with these ears, and we forget that so much dialogue and so much conversation is happening in our minds, and how we're acting really is usually a result of an internal conversation And Sally, you were telling me that these could be, I think you said, three different types of conversation. So tell us about that.
So that's right. We hear so many different voices in our inside of us, but we don't name them as voices. We just we think that we're having thoughts. So the Lord spoke to me about three different things. One is the voice of our heart. And I tell you, pretty girls, I spoke last time, I like to speak from what I go through, from the place where I'm at. And I tell you, I can tell you, I know about this voice, the voice of the heart. The voice of the heart is shaped through our life experiences, even from the womb. You know that a child can identify the mother's voice even in the womb. And science even shows that a child, a baby, can identify the father's voice even from the womb. And so if a baby can identify all of that from the womb, a good thing, positive thing, they also can identify negative things. And so our emotions are formed. A baby, the emotions of a baby are formed even before their cognitive skills. They will feel before they think. And so the voice of our heart speaks so loud, and our life experiences shape those voices. When we get to adult life, the voices that we used to hear, things that are familiar, whether if it's our hurts, our some complexes like rejection, abandonment issues, inferiority issues, we go through that in life. Some people are, let's say, a little overweight when they're young, and so they're picked up on school. They are picked on. They are bullied. Things like that go shape those voices inside of us. And when we grow up, the situations that we go through go bring those voices back, and they start speaking. But we don't think about these things. We just feel it, and we just hear these things. I'll give you an example of a voice of the heart. You, let's say, a lot of you are preacher girls, or some of you are pastors. You have in your church people that will all of a sudden be angry at you, and you don't know why, because you don't feel any different toward them. You consciously don't think that you did anything to them, but all of a sudden they stop speaking to you. They speak bad of you, and you just don't know why. There is a great possibility that that person is hearing the voice of the heart, but a negative one, the one that speak from their life experiences, rejection issue. But I challenge you on this first voice to stop and try to think, what are the voices of what are the things that the voice of my heart is speaking to me right now?
Okay. And I know I have listened to it. That one rises up without you thinking. And it brings back childhood hurts and like Sally said, rejection issues and insecurity issues and all those kinds of things. And it's the one that causes you to kind of curl up in your bed and feel sorry for yourself and cry
Mm-hmm.
over things and even imagine outcomes that might never even happen, or
Mm-hmm.
assume that you can can understand what people are thinking about you or about a situation when you really don't know if that's so. So that's one of the voices. Tell me about the other one,
Mm-hmm.
Sally.
The other voice is often, let's say, provoked by the first voice, which is the voice of the mind. I strongly believe that our feelings produce our thoughts. And so what we feel, usually what we think, come from what we feel. So the voice of the mind, and then there are many nuances to these. I'm just like making it simple, like heart, mind, and then we'll get to the third one. So what we feel usually gives us what I call lenses. And so these lenses make us see the world however way they're shaped, whatever is painted on them. And so the way we feel makes us think. So first we feel, and then we think, oh, well, oh, I feel rejected. That's what I carry. It's as an example. And then my thought will produce thoughts of rejection. We'll see, like just using the previous example. Oh, my thoughts. Oh, Pastor Cheryl doesn't like me because she didn't greet me properly. She spends time with everyone, but when she does greet me, it's very fast and really quick. Oh, how are you? It's so superficial. So the thoughts start speaking, and they're so loud that they muffle any other voice, is especially and including and especially the voice of God. But I want to to leave that for later, because these three voices that we're talking about usually are the ones that hinders us from hearing the right voice, which is the voice of God. So the voice of the mind, um, they they make us see things that are not. They make us um, view things that do not exist. And so this is something that we really need to look and be careful with. So at the end of the three voices, I will give you some tips on how to identify those voices. But can we go to the third one?
Go right ahead.
I'm so excited about this topic, and that we could, like, I tell you, I spoke like 4 times on this, but I'm trying to make this really short. So the third voice is the voice of the devil. Here, we even in church, we can go to church and boom, a demon can manifest there. But in the West, that's not how demons manifest. You know where demons manifest the most? In the mind. In the mind, the humanism in the West has made people, like, it shaped society in a way that Satan is still there big time, but he won't manifest like that, like he does in Africa. But he will manifest in the thoughts, in the mind, shaping people's minds. And so what we feel determine what we think, and what we think determine how we behave. So it's one thing after another. So we feel, we think, and our thoughts makes us behave. So in our thoughts, Satan works a lot in our thoughts, in our thought process. And so the voices of the devil, one of the things that the Lord showed me, because I'm like, Lord, but like, if I am full of the Holy Spirit, if I have your word in my mind, how can the devil talk to me or talk into my mind like that? Well, one of the things the Lord showed me is that sometimes we open holes. And these three voices are important because to mention, because sometimes the devil will speak within the gaps that we, like the holes that we have in our hearts, the weaknesses, the things that are open, like I mentioned, like complex, like rejection issues, abandonment issues, inferiority issues, insecurity issues, or pride. And so Satan will speak through those gaps, through those holes, and straight into our thoughts that will produce behaviors. And I can even break relationships because of those voices. I don't want to jump to the end, but I want to give you, can I just go ahead?
Yes.
Sorry, I'm so excited about this
I mean,
topic.
I mean, you don't even need an interviewer. You can just do the whole thing.
So, we need to filter those voices. And I want to read Philippians 4. Philippians 4:8 says this. Finally, brothers, whatever is true, whatever is noble, whatever is right, whatever is pure, whatever is lovely, whatever is admirable, if anything is excellent and praiseworthy, think about such things. So I was asking the Lord, Father, how then can we identify those voices and sort of like looking for a cure, if you know what I mean? And so the Lord spoke to me like, you have to be able to filter the voices. So what here it says in the affirmative, whatever is true, think about this. Whatever is noble, think about this. Whatever is admired, whatever is right, whatever is pure. But now I want to put it in the opposite, in a different perspective. Whatever is not true, right?
Yeah.
Um, whatever is not true. How do I filter those voices? I have to ask, is this true? Is this feeling true? Is this voice, is this thought true? Is the devil speaking into this? Is it true? You ask, you use the word and you ask the question, is it true? And is it lovely? Is it a thought that bring you peace? Because if it is not, if it is a thought that bring you down, if it is a thought that bring you depression, if it is a thought that makes you sad, if it is a thought that make you cry, not that we never cry. I'm just saying, you test it, you
Yeah.
filter it, you filter it. Whatever is admirable, what is admirable about the voice you're hearing? What is admirable about what you're thinking? Who cares what people say about you? Why do you care so much about what people say about you, PGs? Test this thought.
Ask
What
him.
really,
Ask him.
yes, yes. What really matters is what God says about you. Because this is what Paul says to the Philippians, but he's not saying to the Philippians 2,000 years ago. He's saying now to the PG community right now. Is this admirable? Is this something that is worth of your sleep? Filter these voices. It doesn't stop there. If anything is excellent and praiseworthy, what is praiseworthy about what you're thinking?
Mm.
This voice that is speaking so loud inside of you, is anything praiseworthy about that? Is it worthy of you spending your time? Is what you're thinking worthy of your tears? Is it worthy of your sad face? Is it worthy of your pain? Test these, because if it is not, I mean, to begin with, this does not come from the Lord. Because what comes from the Lord is this. It's whatever is true, whatever. If what people is saying about you, you know that it's not true, then don't waste your time with that, because it is not true. Those thoughts do not belong in your mind. Go to hell with that. Not you. Satan, get out of here. Suka invitura Yesu. It's always in Shangana.
I love it. I love it. And so, Sally, you said, filter it, ask yourself those questions. How do you, if the thought is already in your mind, right? It's already there. In fact, the devil is say it's a thought from the devil, right? He's the one who's speaking and it's bombarding you. Then how do you push that thought away? Because girls ask all the time. They say, I don't want to think about it, but it's all in my mind. I don't know how to shake the thought. I had one person sitting in my office yesterday and telling me out of nowhere, the thought just comes in and they push it out and then it just comes back in. And it's not temptation and it's not sin. It's something that just steals their peace. How do you push that out? And filtering is one thing, but how do you access the filter?
So there are different situations. Satan wants you to stay imprisoned inside of you. We hurt ourselves. Everyone is laughing around us, but we are like so sad and depressed. We may have a smile on our face, but inside we are bleeding. So one of the things that Satan wants us is to keep us inside. So one of the things, to me, depending on this situation, we would have to go through a counseling session on each of the cases, but you can ask the Lord to help you to judge the case, because there are cases where I advise you to share with someone, because when you speak it, sometimes when you speak, just the fact you're hearing your own voice, you yourself will say like, you know what, it's not as bad as it played inside of me. Does that make sense to you?
Yes.
So when you speak it, whether if it's with a friend or with a husband or with someone you trust, when you speak, you go like, oh, actually, it's not as bad as I thought it was. But there are cases where you can go to the person that you were thinking about. It depends on relationship, depending um, uh, on the type of relationship you have with the person, the freedom you have with the person. Because if you do, you're thinking all these things in your mind when the person is so innocent. It's not what they feel at all. How will you know? Ask them. You have asked your thoughts, but ask them. But don't kill them. Don't go with a machete and where is it? Well, you no. Just go in a way that they can hear you without feeling accused. Don't go offending them. I, I would go like, I have been feeling this way, because that way you don't put it on the person. You keep thinking these things about your husband. Oh, he doesn't love me because he didn't do that, and he didn't, and he did that. And so talk to him if you will listen, but in a way that he can listen to you.
Yeah, that's amazing. That's good. I love that. I don't know where you PG girls are today. I know that the podcast is timely. I know that God's speaking to some of you who've been in mental torment. That's what I kept feeling like. Some of you have not been able to shake the voices, not just the voice in your own head of your heart or of your mind or of the enemy, but it's not just about filtering those thoughts and about not thinking like that. It's also about hearing the right voice. It's not just about not
Mm-hmm.
hearing the wrong ones, but it's about listening, understanding, and hearing the right one. So, Sally, do
Mm-hmm.
you have any advice for that? If we are going to shut down the voices, if we're going to shut down the voices of the heart, the voices of the mind, the Bible said that the heart is deceitful above all things and it's desperately
Mm-hmm.
wicked. The world says, listen to your heart. And the Bible says, listen to the voice of God,
Mm-hmm.
trust your heart. So how do we ensure as women of God and as ministers that we are tuned in to his voice, and that all the other voices, whether they be good or whether they be bad, are second to his voice?
I want to read Romans 12:2. It says like this: do not conform any longer to the pattern of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. Then you will be able to test and approve what God's will is. So, reading this word, this verse here, tells me this. It is much harder to repaint a wall than to paint a blank wall. When you are going to repaint a wall, you have to sand it. You have to take, um, you have to work on it. Basically, like not to redo the whole wall, but kind of redo it before you paint. You put a new coat of paint on it. And so how do we shut all those voices down to hear the one voice that matters? We have to renew our mind. But to do that, we need to do not conform to the patterns. Here it says to the pattern of this world. And I will change it a little bit. I will say, do not conform. PG, listen to this. Do not conform any longer to the pattern of thoughts of your mind. Work on. It's not easy. I have to say, I am 42. I know I don't look like it. Thank you. Yeah. So I am 42, right? It is so hard to change the way I think at the age of 42. It is much easier to form the way a child thinks than to reform the way an adult thinks. But yet, if we want to hear God's voice, because most of our lives we have believed lies. And how do we believe the truth? We have to break down the lies so that to establish the truth. So we have to renew, we have to redo, because this is the only way that we are going to be able to test and approve God's will and his good, pleasing and perfect will. And then I will add a little bit here, like to know God's will, his pleasant and perfect will. We need to hear his voice. And how do we hear his voice? We have to change, renew the way we think. We have to sand it. We have to take all the impurities. We have to cut whatever needs to be cut, to paint over it, to have a new way of thinking so that we can hear the right voice.
Amen. Woo! How do you guys feel right now? I hope that all the things that she's saying right now, I think I'm gonna have to transcribe this podcast and have the notes down in the show notes down below so that you can get it on a PDF and go back and read it and put it in your spirit and put it in your heart so that you'll never forget it. Because let me tell you something, that renewing of the mind is the key. It really is the key to living a successful Christian life, because before Satan can take you down, he's going to attack you here. If he wins the battle in your head, he's won the battle. But like Sally said,
Yes.
just go to hell. I said it for you. Anyway, Preacher Girls, I know you love this. It's been about 40 minutes since we started this. It doesn't seem so long, but this is what we're gonna do. I'm gonna have Sally. She's always in the community. She looks at your comments and stuff, and I know this is it's gonna hit home for so many of us. So if you have questions, if you have particular issues, or if you have a struggle in the area of your thought life and renewing your mind and the voices that the enemy or yourself are bringing you down with. So many of you, I've heard from you this past week with this same issue and not being able to get over yourself or get over your thoughts or get over whatever the enemy is in your spirit. And you need us to not just agree with you in prayer, but you need some practical push in the right direction. Then go on in the PG community and say something, because like Celia said in the beginning, you got to tell somebody, and that's why we're here. And it's not about, I've heard you say, putting my business out there, honey. Struggling alone will kill you.
Yep.
It's what the enemy wants, to isolate you and to make sure you're by yourself. But we were not meant to be isolated. We're meant to be in communion and in community. So Pastor Celia, just before I give you the mic to give the closing comments, I want to say to all of you PGs, thank you again for being such an awesome community of people. I want to ask your help in one more thing before Sally dismisses us and closes up this podcast for us. We have over 1,000 of us in the online community, but there are only 400 of us subscribed to the podcast on YouTube. And in order for us to reach a broader audience and for more people to get the same goodness that we've been getting, that's the number that needs to be built up. Why? Because in the community, it's shut. I'm not going to open it. It's a closed community, so only those who have subscribed and are part of it can get these amazing benefits. On YouTube, however, everybody in the world that needs it can see it. So as long as those numbers can go up, then it benefits more people. So if you would and have not yet subscribed to the PG channel on YouTube, it's Preacher Girl TV. Will you go and do that today? Or I'll put the link in the show notes. So Pastor Sally, will you wrap us up? Will you just give us your last thoughts concerning voices?
I will use a somewhat secular word. Your success or your failure is in here. What you feel, what you think will determine how you behave. So ask God to just come in and try and help you to renew the way you think, the way you feel. Ask him to, like I did, and like I do, because I'm not preaching at you. I'm sharing what I go through with you. Constantly, constantly, constantly asking the Lord, is this true? Is this real? Because a lot of times it is not real, and then that will determine my failure in my relationships, in my workplace, in school. The way I feel will determine how I think, and how I think will determine how I behave. So how do you want to behave? And to really wrap up, I'll say we are ambassadors of God's kingdom on earth. And if we are not careful, we are really portraying a different kingdom by the way we behave. And what kingdom do you want to represent on earth? I will leave you with this question.
I love it. I love it. I couldn't say it any better myself. Preacher girls, I love each and every one of you. I want you to be strong in the renewing of your mind, and remember forever and ever that if God has called you, then no one can
No one
uncall
can
you.
uncall you.
Yay, Sally!
Bye, PGs!
Yay!